Welcome back. Compared to other states, Florida currently has the greatest number and percentage of residents over age 65. You probably knew that. But with that said, the Sunshine State is going to be facing major challenges in how to help population who will demand more long-term care.
And Steve Watrel is a local attorney who says it is his mission to protect elderly nursing home residents for the past 25 years. He just released a report, The State of Nursing Homes and Elder Abuse in Florida. Good to see you, Steve. Thanks for being here. So one of the findings that you found was recently highlighted in an investigative report that we mentioned was on First Coast News. So tell us about the digital abuse and what family members and caregivers you want them to take away from your research and what was profiled on our news partner.
Well, what we're seeing is a disturbing trend for nursing home employees. They're using their smartphones to take humiliating and degrading photographs, and then they're sharing them on Facebook and Snapchat. And because Snapchat sort of things go away quickly, they feel like it's just sort of anonymous. And what we saw in the First Coast News report was this person doing a lap dance in front of a 100-year-old Alzheimer's patient who had no idea. And these folks they think it's amusing or funny, and they shouldn't be working there to begin with, but it's just completely humiliating for these folks.
It's awful. I just looking at that video, is that part of what we were looking at just a second ago?
I can't watch them.
It makes me almost like it just. Oof.
It said, the report said 47 reported incidents since 2012. What, besides that one that we just talked about, what are the kinds of things? I mean, because like you said, some people are thinking, oh, no big deal, nobody knows who this person is, but if you're a family member of that person, yeah, you're probably bothered by these pictures being shared.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's been photographs of naked residents laying in their own feces. We've had photographs of deceased residents. And there's, for example, one video that we saw that there's a CNA that's talking to a woman on the toilet asking about marijuana usage and her sex life. I mean, it's just sick.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend to protect your loved ones if you have someone in a nursing home, and if you suspect that something is going on, what do you recommend that people should do?
First, I would say don't sign the photography consent. They'll always have a consent to take photographs, and I could see that one day being used as a defense, so I'd recommend don't sign that. And if you suspect abuse, call the abuse hotline, which is 1-800-96-ABUSE, and they'll come out within 24 hours and investigate and make findings and recommendations.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you've a couple times when we've had you on, you've talked about the consent, the different consents that you'll get. Don't sign those things right away. We all are just conditioned to think consent gets handed to us, I have no choice, I got to sign it. But I like that you're saying question all of these consents. And besides digital abuse, what are some of the other findings that you're seeing in some of these facilities?
Well, in the report, what we outline, first and foremost, we see lots of bed sores or pressure ulcers, and that's from folks with unrelieved pressure. They're not being turned because there's not enough staff, or they're laying in their own feces and urine. We're seeing dehydration and malnutrition because they'll just drop off meals and leave. We're seeing tons of falls and also drops because, the staff, there's not enough help, so they're trying to pick up residents and dropping them. And then lastly, we're seeing a lot of sepsis, which is blood poisoning from untreated infections. And it's infections that have been going on for days, and eventually they'll find the resident basically dead and from the poisoning.
So if someone's watching again, trying to take away what we can from the interview, what are the top 5 things that you would recommend to anyone to make sure that if they're visiting a nursing home and they're thinking about bringing their loved one there, or perhaps they're already at a nursing home and they went there thinking, this place is nice, the people were wonderful, but they might not have done more than just that, what do you recommend that they do?
Well, I mean, it's all about level of care. You've got to pick the right facility with the right level of care. And what we outline in the report is the credentials of the staff, whether they're registered nurses or LPNs, their training, their experience, because are they fresh out of school, or have they been around a while? The supervision, there's some poor supervision, which leads to a lot of the issues. And then you have to understand the facility differences in the care. For example, assisted living facilities, if you've noticed, they're popping up everywhere because there's not a limitation on beds like there are for nursing homes. That doesn't mean you put your loved one in an assisted living facility, because they may not have the level of care needed for your loved one. And that's probably the most important thing, is to understand, just because it looks nice and it seems nice and they have a coffee bar, that doesn't mean they have enough staff to care for an Alzheimer's patient or someone like that.
Yeah, it's reassuring when we talk. At times you say, look, this is not, at times you wish you didn't have cases. You wish you didn't have so many people coming to you for this. So for those that are more and more facilities and communities are going to be popping up, obviously, with more and more elderly people. It's really important to do your homework, instead of just, like you said,
Correct.
look at the facade or whatever, but to really dive into everything they do there, right?
Correct, and we created the Caregiver's Guide, if you recall, that goes into depth what you should be looking at, like you should be looking at their prior surveys. And you got to ask the tough questions. People are scared to ask questions, and you're making a life and death decision for a loved one. It's the most important decision and could be the most heartbreaking, so you need to do your
Don't
homework.
apologize. Exactly right. Go in there and ask the questions.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Steve. Good
Thank
to
you.
see you.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. And we'd like to thank Steve Watrel for making this segment possible. And remember, you can find Steve's full report at stopelderabusejacks.com. You can also get a copy of the Caregiver's Guide, which talks about the different types of facilities and care each provides. And if you felt that your loved one has been abused or neglected in a nursing facility, call the law office of Steve Watrel right now. The number is 904-723-0030.